Now, they say you don't miss what you never had, and I totally disagree with that when it comes to absent fathers. You know that even though you don't have a father, you're supposed to have a father. This is Dee, and this is the Come Up Straight Up. This is Dee. Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new to this channel, welcome. Well, guys, I am back with a new video. This is actually New Year's Day, January 1st, and I thought I would begin the year with a subject I have not yet touched upon on this channel, and that is daddy issues and how those issues might be impacting your come up. But before we get into all of that, please do not forget to subscribe, guys. Subscribe and turn on those notifications so you are aware whenever I upload a great new video just like this one. Okay, guys, let's get right into it. So in this video, I'm going to discuss what are daddy issues, why we might have daddy issues, how the daddy issues show up in our lives, in our relationships, and how we can overcome them. Daddy issues are defined as so why do women have daddy issue? What creates these daddy issues, this abnormal relationship with your father? Firstly, an absentee father, a father who was not in your life at all. Now, they say you don't miss what you never had, and I totally disagree with that when it comes to absent fathers. You know, it took two people to create you. You know that even though you don't have a father, you're supposed to have a father. And when you're supposed to have a father and you don't, you can't help but wonder about him. And you can't help but wonder why he chose not to be a part of your life. There is also the bad father, a father who is abusive physically, emotionally, or mentally, or a father who is in the home but not really present. Yes, he might provide for you financially, but you feel that he could take you or leave you. You don't feel important to him. And then there is the father that prefers another sibling to you. You grow up knowing that, yeah, again, he may provide for you financially, but you know that someone else is the favorite. And then there is the divorced father, the father that was present every day in your life, a father who you loved and had a close relationship with, but boom, all of a sudden one day he and your mother split up and you are left with seeing him on a part-time basis every other weekend, every other week, the summers. A father with whom you are fractured. Now, I was fortunate to grow up in a two-parent middle-class home where, we weren't rich, but we certainly were not poor. We had, the material things, and I would say probably 85% of my childhood was wonderful. It was great. But that other 15% was a motherfucker. And I'm going to keep it all the way real with you guys, because there is no such thing as a perfect life. My childhood was great for the most part, but there are times that were not so great. And that was primarily the result of alcoholism. There was abuse in my home. And again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all, because it's important to know that even though a person comes from a good home, there is no such thing as a perfect home. Now, this was not a situation that occurred on a daily or even weekly basis. And, God works in mysterious ways. My dad was diagnosed with a diabetes when I think I was around 9 or 10. And as a result, the doctor told him, you cannot drink. You can't drink anymore. And he didn't. He just quit. So I was very, very fortunate in that respect. But, it was what it was. So how do these relationships with our fathers show up in our lives as adults? How does the lack of a relationship show up in your life as an adult? For me, it was knowing what I did not want. Primarily, I knew growing up that I would never, ever, ever be with a man who drank, ever. I also knew that I would never, ever, ever be with a man who I felt had any sort of tendency to be abusive. I don't ignore those red flags like a lot of women do. When I recognize those red flags, I'm like, I'm out. I am a woman that no man has ever put his hands on me. And that was part of my takeaway, how it sort of manifested for me. How it sort of manifested in me was also in a positive sense. My dad was a provider. He was a protector. I know that sounds almost like a contradiction, but he was. And as a result of that, I grew up with standards. My dad always said, you can do bad by yourself. If you're going to get you somebody, get you somebody. And so despite what happened when we were younger, my brother and my sister, there was always love in our home. I remember I moved to Vegas years ago by myself. And I know my parents were freaking out, but I felt secure because I don't care what happened, I could always come back home. No questions asked. There were tough moments, for sure. But on the whole, I was very blessed. And I understood, and I do understand that there is no perfect upbringing and there are no perfect people. So how does it show up in other ways? There are women who choose to get with a daddy. And I don't mean a sugar daddy necessarily, a man who basically fathers them within the relationship, to whom they give complete power, they lose themselves, they don't have a voice in the relationship. He runs the show and this person is content to let him run the show, the relationship, and all aspects of the relationship. And oftentimes in the end that could be to a woman's detriment. What happens if he runs off with the secretary and you have given this man complete control over your life, over your finances? That is a scary situation to be in for any woman. Another way it shows up is, of course, in the pleaser. This woman did not have a father, or if she had one in the home, she did not get that emotional support from him. So she felt rejected. She bends over backwards for her man. He could cheat on her. She takes him back over and over because she is pathologically afraid of rejection. These are the women who repeat the patterns the most. They repeat the negative patterns, the dysfunction that they had with their fathers. And lastly, there is what I like to call the Scarlett O'Hara. Remember that the scene in Gone with the Wind where she says, "I'll never go hungry again." Whatever experiences she had with her father, she is determined never to have them again. And myself, I sort of fall under this category in many respects. The problem with Scarlett is they're very distrustful. They can be, I'm a person who recognizes red flags, but I'm not necessarily a person who looks for them. And Scarlett O'Hara, the Scarlett, looks for them. She is always looking for the flaw. This woman might be very successful in her professional career. She might be very driven. But what drives her success doesn't come from a good place. This woman might in fact have the most difficult time with relationships because she is afraid to be vulnerable. She is afraid to let her guard down. And that can be very, very difficult to get past when you are relating your present with your past. So how do we get past our daddy issues? How do we heal ourselves? How do we not allow them to destroy our come up, our lives, and our relationships? First and foremost, you have to acknowledge your issues. I always say you can't change what you won't acknowledge. You have to be willing to ask yourself, what drives my decisions? Why do I have such a deep fear of rejection from a man who doesn't even deserve me? Next, you have to decide that you will no longer suffer. What I have seen is there are people who make peace with the past and they do not wallow in self-pity and allow the past to destroy their present and future. And then there are others who use the past as an excuse, as a justification, passing that dysfunction along to my children by virtue of the choices that I make. But a lot of times it is unconscious. If you watch this channel, you know that I am a huge believer in therapy. I've been to therapy and I think it has benefited me. I know it has benefited me tremendously. There are support groups, there are organizations that provide counseling and therapy free of charge. You just have to find them. Well, where there's a will, there's a way. There are psychologists with YouTube channels. You just have to seek them out. I think most women have daddy issues in one way or another. I had a great relationship with my father despite the issues when I was very younger, and that shaped me into the woman I am with regards to my relationships with men. I have always been hypergamous, even though I didn't know what that word was. I have always been with a provider and a protector. Many women have never saw a good example of a father. And that makes it much more challenging as women, as adults. This is why doing the work internally to improve yourself is so important. Our relationships with our fathers have an undeniable impact on our lives as women. It is something that cannot be avoided for better or for worse. But our lives are our responsibilities, particularly as a woman of a certain age. It is your responsibility, your obligation to yourself, not to allow daddy issues to destroy your come up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, thumbs it up, please thumbs it up. And yeah, you guys share this video, share this channel. Please get the word out on this channel. I really want to try and build it in 2021. I have a new Instagram page for the Come Up Straight Up. I am going to link it below. I just started it, so please, please, please follow me on Instagram as well as Twitter. So until next time, mwah.